We swing back to the market in listening to the views of the CEO of the Stock Exchange, my good brother, Oscar Onyema. But I would stop you. I couldn't stop the others, but I will stop you if you go beyond 4 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof. Can you hear me? Okay. Let me start by thanking the National Assembly for giving us a platform to discuss today. You know, it's unfortunate that we don't have very strong representation from the states, and we're talking about infrastructure development for states. But suffice it to say that at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, we provide a platform that allows investors to find people that need the idle funds that they have and are able to deploy them into productive activities. And so not just from the listing of fixed income, but also equities and exchange-traded funds, and we're now working on derivatives. I thought it was important to mention that because Shola made some very strong points around fixed income, but there are other products that can also support the deployment of funds towards infrastructure development, especially for states. We all know the challenges we have with regards to gaps in infrastructure development in Nigeria, and those gaps are quite big, and so we must really consider multiple sources in order to address those gaps. Fixed income, if we look at fixed income on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, we have about 7 trillion naira in listed fixed income, but most of it is federal government bonds and then corporates and states. So the federal government is crowding out the corporates and states. And then with regards to the states, there are so many limitations, which Shola touched upon. And therein lies the challenge and the need for us to really consider thinking outside the box. For example, privatization, state privatization. A number of states have tried to do privatization. We think that there's still a huge opportunity there because that addresses the equity, security aspect of things and allows them to actually raise funds when they do the privatization while introducing things like corporate governance that Mrs. Owaifo talked about. The Council President of the Stock Exchange and DGSEC have talked about the fact that there's a lot of work that has actually gone on with regards to corporate governance, and we need to bring that type of discipline into the public sector. Using privatization could be a powerful tool, and there you don't have caps. You don't have to sell everything that you own, by the way, but just introducing certain aspects of the private sector allows the governments to leverage themselves because you need know-how. We have serious gaps with regards to know-how at the state level to structure deals and to allow for bankable infrastructure deals that funds would actually come to us. I also submit that we need to change a few things with regards to our laws, from the PIB bills to bankruptcy laws to tax laws, to all of these really designed to make the ease of doing business a lot more competitive. At 169 out of 186 countries, you would agree with me there is a lot of opportunity for improvement. And really dealing with that, taking away the impediments, the bottlenecks, will really free up opportunities for people to go into states. Now, some states are doing a fantastic job of trying to attract investments, but these laws and at the state levels continue to make it unattractive for investors to actually go into that space. And then the last thing I would say, we're still waiting for the first infrastructure fund. We're still waiting for the first infrastructure bond in the country. The laws are there, the regulation is there, and it's now dependent upon the practitioners to develop some of these products and get idle funds working towards really helping to drive improvement in infrastructure. So, Kanye, I hope you did not have to stop me. I think you did not, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. We now turn again to another sort of point of view as we listen to Honorable Aliu, who used to head the House Committee on Capital Markets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. and co-panelists. Let me start by putting the record clear that today is not the first time the National Assembly is putting together stakeholders and operators of this market. In 2004, under my stewardship, we called together stakeholders and operators, and that provided the platform that led to the review and amendment of the ISA 2007. Having said this, the speakers before me are much more technically sound than I am. I'm just a politician. And taking us back to the first coming together was what led to my getting my title as a the only chartered politician in Nigeria so far. Let me say that the issue today is all around and about legislation. And talking about legislation, the Constitution has provided that power only to the National Assembly. But permit me to say, as I have always said, greater percentage of the materials needed by members of the National Assembly to be able to put together and enact enabling laws are supposed to be coming from out there. If you look at the two chambers of the National Assembly, you may hardly have 10 stockbrokers or 10 chartered accountants, but you have 500 and something politicians that may not really know the requisite materials, so to say, to be able to put together laws that will deepen and grow this market. But unfortunately, the corporate citizens of Nigeria enjoy distancing themselves from the politicians. And I have always said, and I will reiterate it here, that political power is the most important power because it determines all other powers. So if you leave the terrain of lawmaking only to the politicians, you may not get what you need. So we have to close ranks so that the needed education will be gotten by politicians. I'm talking about, because I have only 4 minutes, and Nigeria paid me for 8 years to talk, and I'm still talking. Talking about states accessing the capital market to raise funds for infrastructural development, I don't think there are much constraints to really talk about. My sister, I've forgotten your name, sorry, with due respect. She did mention some of the caps we have. Some of the caps are there to serve as checks because there shouldn't be any, there shouldn't be space without boundaries. So the caps are there to serve as checks. Bottom line is most states are not doing the much they need to do as to IGR. Because one of the caps is you cannot access beyond 50% of your internally generated revenue. So if the states are truly committed to giving the people, giving back to the people the best that the people need, then they should do everything possible to beef up their revenue profile. When the revenue profile is taken up, then they will have much to access. And talking about beefing up the revenue profile of states, again, the regulator, the apex regulator of the capital market comes in here. That is Securities and Exchange Commission. I don't know, ISA 2007 provides for capital trade points. I really don't know what has been happening around and about capital trade points. This is one of the vehicles that we could leverage on to really integrate the informal sector, because that is where our strength is. One of the key things that makes, one of the key things that make us what we are is population. And greater percentage of the population are the downtrodden. If we are not able to integrate the Gari seller in Wuse market, Alaba market, and the rest into the Nigerian capital market, we are not doing justice to what God has provided for us.
Thank you very much, sir. Most obliged. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think, obviously, you were very resounding, and there was quite a good round of applause for you, although we know that you're a good speaker, as you mentioned. I'll just ask Ms. Waifo if you have anything to say for 1 minute, and the DG, 1 minute. 1 minute.
I think what I will say will be for state governments, it's the key is increasing the revenue that the state revenue generates, and getting the members of the state, the domestic markets, to invest in the state. And that means the issue of corporate governance, transparency, as Mrs. David Bora mentioned. If state governments can just focus on growing their domestic market and getting their domestic investors to invest in them, then they are doing what it takes to attract other investment to that state. Obviously, because they are states and they are smaller, eventually they will have to think about, for infrastructure projects, they will have to think about collaboration with other states to form regional projects. But all that structuring can come. The background, what lies at the root, will be looking at their own internal systems, privatization, and getting the states to invest in them. In particular, I would just mention, they could also think about diaspora bonds. Because the way I think about it, there are so many nationals that live outside of their states who will happily invest in their state if they say, look, invest in this bond, it will create transport in your state, in your home state. There's a market there.